Coming up on Network Africa, at least 10 people killed in Niger attack by insurgents on motorbikes. Ethiopian government denies military plane was shot down by the TPLF rebels. Plus, South Africa police to open criminal case against the convener of an EFF protest in Pretoria for alleged contravention of Disaster Management Act regulations. Hello and welcome to the program, everyone. I'm Layo Adigoke. We begin in Niger, where reports say at least 10 people have been killed in an attack by suspected jihadists in western Niger. Officials in Tillaberi province said the insurgents used motorbikes to carry out raids on two villages, Dangazuani and Korombara, and farmers in neighboring fields. Grain stores and huts are also reportedly burnt down. Tillaberi is located in the tri-border zone linking Niger, Burkina Faso and Mali, which is notoriously known as an insecure area. Hundreds of people have been killed and thousands more displaced across the Sahel region by continuing attacks by jihadist factions. The Ethiopian military has rejected claims that its plane, which crashed in the Tigray region on Wednesday, was shot down by rebels. The TPLF said its anti-aircraft guns had shot the plane down as part of its current counter-offensive against the government. But an army spokesperson says that the military plane suffered a mechanical fault, but did not say how many people were on board. The Tigray People Liberation Front, that's the TPLF, alleged that its forces struck an aircraft carrying ammunition and soldiers wearing Eritrean uniforms. Eritrea has been known to be fighting alongside the Ethiopian government in the 8-month-long conflict in Tigray. Over the past week, fighting has escalated in the region, with the Ethiopian Air Force accused of carrying out an airstrike on the market, killing and wounding dozens of civilians. However, the Ethiopian military has denied targeting any civilian. Uganda will be added to the UK's travel red list of high-risk COVID-19 countries from June the 30th. Now, this means travelers from Uganda will not be able to enter the UK unless they are returning nationals or residents, and they would have to first test negative and then isolate for 10 days on entry. This comes amidst rising coronavirus cases in Uganda, which is currently on the UK's amber list for travel. More than 1,200 positive cases were recorded on Tuesday, and over 75,000 people have been infected since the pandemic began. A 45-day lockdown was imposed in the country last week, and a 7 to 5:30 curfew is in place. Schools remain closed, passenger public and private transport is also banned, and some businesses are not allowed to operate. Afrigen Biologics Vaccine, a Cape Town-based biotechnology company, is gearing up towards Africa's first COVID-19 mRNA vaccine. Afrigen will participate with pharmaceutical company BioVac as part of the Tech Transfer Hub initiative by the World Health Organization for poor and middle-income countries to access the technology to be able to manufacture the most advanced COVID-19 vaccines.
The World Health Organization picked Afrigen Biologics for the pilot. Now the South African startup says it expects a decision from partners in mid-July. The $9 million tech transfer hub will make it possible for African companies to manufacture mRNA vaccines in 9 to 12 months.
The WHO and partners are in discussions with technology partners. We believe that by middle July, those discussions will be completed. A delegation will visit South Africa in the week of the 19th of July, at which time we will then start officially the process to prepare for tech transfer. We hope And the target is that in 12 months from tech transfer agreements being signed, we will have the first vaccine candidate into clinical trials, either for bridging studies or phase 1 clinical trials.
The advanced mRNA technology is used in Pfizer and Moderna shots. They currently require very cold storage.
This is the first step for us in Africa to establish cutting-edge novel technology, vaccine production, suitable for fast-track, rapid response, and to ensure that we have vaccine security on this continent.
But Blanche says Afrigen would access technology to produce a thermostable mRNA vaccine that could be kept at temperatures of between 2 to 8 degrees Celsius. Afrigen's facility will be capable of producing a maximum of 10,000 vaccine vials a day. It's also partnered with local manufacturer BioVac, which can produce 30 to 50 million doses a year to distribute across the continent.
Police in South Africa are set to open a criminal case against the convener of an EFF protest in Pretoria for the alleged contravention of Disaster Management Act regulations. The Red Berets gathered in Pretoria on Friday for a march to the South African Health Products Regulatory Authority, SAFRA, under the March to Save Lives banner. The party is protesting for the inclusion of the Sputnik V and Sinovac vaccines in the government's vaccination rollout program. More than 2,000 EFF supporters gathered, but according to the adjusted Level 3 lockdown regulations, only gatherings of 100 people are allowed in an open area. The regulations also state that a law enforcement officer must, where a gathering is taking place in contravention of the regulations, order those at the gathering to disperse immediately. If the people refuse to disperse, police may arrest them. Well, police now say instead they will open a criminal case against the convener.
Our demands are simple. We want more vaccine available. And because the president and his government have eaten our money, our people are dying in their numbers. They are telling us that this event is a super spreader. But it's not true, because we are meeting here outdoor for a few minutes. From there, we are going home. And we comply with COVID regulation.
Now we are able to do, and we have done 100,000, just over 100,000 a day for the last 2 days. Our target for next week is to get up to 150,000 a day, and by mid-July, 200,000 a day, with the target by the end of July being able to have enough resources in the field to do 250,000 vaccinations a day. The president has asked us to chase a target of 300,000 a day, and I think all of us in the vaccination response program are going to work hard to try and get to that point.
Brian Pugeni, our South Africa correspondent, joins us now for more on this. Hello, Brian. What more can you tell us about today's protest? The protesters still gathered, even though this is contravening the Disaster Management Act regulations.
Thank you for having me. Well, the protesters have dispersed straight after the EFF leader, CIC, Julius Malema, finished his speech. And they handed over the memorandum to SAPRA. The CEO of SAPRA did receive the memorandum, and straight after that, a lot of people started dispersing. Buses which had brought in members of the EFF from different places came through and just took back all the protesters who were there. So at the moment, the place is quiet. The protesters left straight after that.
Right, so they are protesting for the inclusion of the Sputnik V and Sinovac vaccines. That's the Russian and the Chinese vaccines, you know, in the government's vaccination rollout program. Is there a reason for wanting these particular jabs? And is the government listening or, you know, planning on doing this?
Well, their main reason is saying that the Sputnik vaccine and the Chinese vaccine as well, the efficacy rate is very high. And they are saying Russia is ready to give out that vaccine, and they are criticizing the government and saying, why isn't the government really taking that offer? and gone through that route of saying we'll take the Sputnik vaccine and the Chinese vaccine to say we have more options. Because at the moment we have the Johnson & Johnson, which had problems as well before, because we had 2 million doses being dispersed off in the past week. And then the AstraZeneca as well, which was a problem, which had the blood clots issue. So the EFF is saying, why not try different vaccines to give out to the people, seeing that the country is really behind in the vaccination rollout process.
All right, now let's talk about, Julius Malema, who is the convener of this. Now, the police say they will open a criminal case against him. How is that going to pan out?
Well, at the moment, the police are not really saying that the convener is Julius Malema. They are saying the convener is EFF. So we're not really sure at the moment who exactly those charges are going to go to directly. But obviously, Julius Malema is the CIC and the leader of the EFF. But he has people who organize these marches, who organize these protests. So the police are not really sure who exactly to file that charge to exactly. But we'll wait and see who that charge is going to go to, whether it's going to go to the CIC or the EFF or a certain individual in the EFF leadership. But like you said, the march and the protest itself is really bad. In a way, they're saying they're saving lives. But we saw a lot of people not wearing masks in this protest, and there's so many people in that place, which is more than what is allowed at the current level 3 lockdown regulations. So we'll see how that charge goes in the coming week.
All right, then. Thank you so much, Brian Pugeni, our South Africa correspondent there, joining us from Johannesburg. Police have deployed in the Senegalese capital, Dakar, ahead of a vote on a controversial anti-terrorism law that the opposition fears would be used to ban protests and criminalize dissent. The Movement for the Defense of Democracy, an opposition coalition, has urged people to take to the streets. The government says the bill is meant to strengthen Senegal's fight against terror groups. Now, the vote comes amid uncertainty over whether President Macky Sall will seek a controversial third term. On Thursday, thousands took to the streets of Dakar to voice their opposition to the proposal. Some Senegalese citizens even suggested the anti-terror legislation has been introduced in order to suppress opposition to a third term for the president. 3 constituencies in Zambia will not be having their parliamentary elections on August 12th, as the Electoral Commission has called for fresh nominations. The move comes after one parliamentary candidate from one of the constituencies died and the other 2 resigned. The Zambian constitution states that fresh nominations be held if a candidate dies or resigns. After the end of the fresh nomination period, the electoral body is given time to print new ballot papers and organize the election. This will go past the August 12th date that the country is set to hold its general elections. The 3 constituencies affected are the Mandevu, where the candidate died, Lusaka Central, where the ruling Patriotic Front candidate resigned, and Upulungu, where the Democratic Party candidate also resigned. A 5-day forum set up by the United Nations mission in South Sudan, UNMISS, to build trust for an inclusive government in Western Equatoria has brought together government officials, religious leaders, women and youth, all of whom converged in Yambio to make their voices heard and deliberate on governance, economy and services delivery. The participants were briefed on the UNMISS mandate and the details of South Sudan's revitalized peace agreement. Those attending the forum discussed how to operationalize a coalition government most effectively.
When we start talking about politics of violence, where politicians in the state want to create violence as a ladder to power. And that become a very interactive session, and that is where they have accepted that they are the people who trigger violence among themselves. And another one is that when they trigger violence, they start blaming some partners, take responsibility. So in that discussion, they have discovered it's their primary responsibility to make peace and stability prevail, since they're the triggers of this violence. So I think that session was very interactive, and I think have told them, have taken them through a discussion where they have discovered that there's a social contract between them and citizens to act as servants, to deliver service to citizens, and among one of the priority of the service is peace and stability in the state.
It's a vision to capacity enhancement and also to help the partners to understand their priorities and their responsibilities as political operatives. The intention is that at the end of each forum, each state forum, to have their priorities listed, which will be discussed at a national forum to also help inform national policy.
We'll take a break now on Network Africa. When we come back, we meet with the Senegalese migrants who rescued a drowning man in the Spanish river of Nebrion. Please stay with us. Welcome back to the program. The United Nations mission in South Sudan is stepping up efforts to support the government in trying to end conflict-related sexual violence. This is part of efforts to raise awareness about the issue and also to mark the International Day for the Elimination of Sexual Violence in Conflict.
The United Nations mission in South Sudan has organised a 2-day technical workshop in Juba on monitoring and addressing conflict-related sexual violence.
As members of civil society, we can't do what we're doing in a conflict or post-conflict environment if we don't understand the conflict. So for me, the first point, as a human rights activist, as a women human rights activist, is to understand the environment in which you operate. Without that, you're like a fish in a dry land.
Despite the progress and implementation of the South Sudan's revitalised peace agreement signed in September 2018, conflict-related sexual violence persists. Armed actors affiliated with various military groups continue to subject women and girls to sexual violence.
Sexual violence is an abuse against the community and the purity of the nation. And so the era of silence about conflict-related sexual violence and the crimes committed against sexual gender-based violence and the crimes committed against women and children should end. It is time to go beyond intentions and commitments and institute concrete actions where women are not used as instruments in military strategy.
While UNMISS continues to support many local-level grassroots initiatives, institution building and other measures to help address conflict-related sexual violence in the country, the government has the primary responsibility for protecting all its citizens, especially those who are most vulnerable to conflict-related sexual violence.
The agreement on the cessation of hostilities, 2017, and the revitalized agreement on the resolution of conflict in South Sudan also prohibit the use of conflict-related sexual violence. However, conflict-related sexual violence continue to occur after the signing of the agreement. So it becomes an issue for us to look into, and I think this is a very good opportunity for us today to come together and begin talking much about conflict-related sexual violence.
UNMISS says it's committed to promoting attention to human rights, especially the rights of women and girls, in South Sudan's court system by expanding human rights training programs for legal officials that are deployed throughout the country.
A new port has been officially opened in the Berbera in the self-declared Republic of Somaliland, which should help boost exports between the Horn of Africa and the Gulf region. The container port is also potentially a huge benefit to landlocked Ethiopia, which is currently reliant on Djibouti for its exports and imports. Last month, the Addis Ababa government and Dubai's DP World, one of the world's largest port operators, agreed a $1 billion deal to create a trade and logistics corridor between Ethiopia and Berbera. President Muse Bihi Abdi of Somaliland says the new port makes Berbera a regional trade hub and would make it a global center of trade and logistics. Copper art is said to be under threat in Tripoli as craftsmen are abandoning their trade. High rental fees and the disruption of the tourism industry are two factors placing Libya copper art and the craft production under threat of extinction.
High rental fees and the disruption of the tourism industry are two factors placing Libyan copper production under threat of extinction. When coupled with hefty prices of raw material, craftsmen in Tripoli's copper market are increasingly becoming reluctant to continue with their trade.
The Tourism Ministry and General Committee of Arcaf own a lot of stores in markets. They should be considerate of craftsmen in terms of high rent. The Tourism Ministry should do the same. If tourism remains low in future years, the market will completely disappear due to the reluctance of craftsmen who will change their profession and product instead of old professions.
But unlike many craftsmen, Mukhtar al-Nahasi is still attached to the profession he inherited from his forefathers and plans on passing it on to his children, so they maintain their place in Tripoli's old city.
The market is more than 200 to 250 years old. This craft goes back 5 generations in my family. We're one of the families that inherited this handcraft. We learned it from a young age, from my father, and my father learned it from his father, and so on. I won't quit this profession. Although I am a university graduate, I love it and feel the passion towards it. Take two, and feel passion towards it. It is part of my identity, so I will try to teach it to my children and young people willing to learn it.
While usually hustling and bustling with tourists and customers requesting traditional Libyan crafts, products of artistic significance are currently showcased in empty stores.
Three African migrants have become heroes after they saved the life of a pensioner who lost consciousness and fell into a river in Spain. Their bravery went viral when the rescue in the Nervion River in Bilbao, northern Spain, was caught on camera and posted on the social media site TikTok. Senegalese migrant Mohamed Fada Diouf did not hesitate when a 72-year-old man fell unconscious into the river. The 26-year-old jumped into the river and for 15 minutes kept the man afloat. Other migrants jumped to help him when his strength began to fade until a nearby boat rescued them all. He says he was with a group of friends near the river on Monday when they saw the man lose his balance and fall. Now, Diouf came to Spain 4 years ago and makes a living weaving dreadlocks and various odd jobs. After the video of the rescue went viral, a request was opened in change.org to reward his courageous act with legal papers to stay in Spain.
We saw him falling down, and I was running. A lot of people standing here, and taping, and nobody wasn't able to help him, He was in the bad situation. So I decided to save him, to help him, because I know how to swim and I knew that I can do it. And I was like, come on. And I jumped it here to save him. I tried, and I finally did it.
And that's it on the program for today and for the week. Thank you so much for being a part of it. I'm Layo Adegoke. Have a great weekend.